Okay. So what I wanted to share is kind of give you a glimpse of what we do at Impetus and how we are helping deliver the intelligent enterprise. So this is a concept that we have. Impetus is a probably about 30 to 35-year-old company founded in Los Gatos in Bay Area. And we've been doing lots of things over the last 25, 30 years with especially in data science, AI, ML, and a lot of things that we have kind of built up to today. So what I will walk you through is the work that we do, primarily building out the solutions towards kind of creating enterprise, solutions for large customers across a wide variety of verticals. And the goal for us is to advance towards intelligent enterprise, as we call it, and I'll explain what our vision of intelligent enterprise is and transforming the overall enterprise operations with GenAI especially. And with GenAI, we are actually calling a broader umbrella of GenAI and along with ML and AI because enterprises are not leaving the AML behind. They're adapting to the GenAI on top of whatever they have in place today. So I'll just start my presentation today with explaining what is intelligent enterprise from how we look at it. Then talk about what we are doing towards building those GenAI applications on top of AIML and other capabilities that enterprises might have. Then I'll give you a few examples of work we have been doing for customers, that touches upon all the ideas that Priya just explained in prompt engineering. And then also talk about a new offering that we have created for GenAI Innovation Labs. So as part of the goal towards kind of creating the intelligent enterprise. So first of all, what is intelligent enterprise, right? So the enterprise, if you look back, even 25, 30 years, people have been working with CRM and ERP and a lot of other capabilities in internal to all the data that they collect. And they have been coupled with processing and reporting capabilities. Typically, these are legacy enterprise solutions. And they've been doing well. They have done well for a long time that they were being used for, and they're still there in many enterprises today. So then came the data lakes and data warehouses, and some of that connected to being able to kind of do dashboards and reporting solutions on top of that. So this helped enterprises analyze and sense, right? So they are actually things are changing in the marketplace, things are evolving on what customers are looking for. So these solutions, the technology backbone now kind of help these enterprises analyze and sense what is happening. The next level of adaptation was kind of the enterprise ML and AI pieces along with cloud, and on-prem also is part of it, but primarily moving towards cloud with Microsoft Azure, then AWS and everything else around it. So this brought the ability for enterprises to predict. So essentially now you're using the machine learning and AI on top of whatever you have, and the data may be still on-prem, maybe in these data lakes warehouses, some of it on the cloud. So you're using these capabilities to predict. And where GenAI is playing today is building on top of all of this to kind of create the capability to respond. And that's something new that enterprises can respond quickly. I mean, even with ML and AI, they have the ability to kind of predict, and some of those actionable insights would be kind of used to respond. But that's a slower process, whereas the GenAI capability is now something that enterprise can, with a click of a button, respond. Like think of sentiment analysis or other things that we talked about. So there are things, or say an email that has to be sent out. There's a lot of things that could be done with GenAI. So to enable you to do this, there are things that you could do with all of this towards building chatbots, voice bots, sentiment analysis, customer analytics, and many others I talked about. Now, the next step is to enable you to kind of bring the pieces that help you to build these GenAI solutions, right? So building these applications is now about using the having a good data strategy and AI strategy. That also is very critical, especially for a large enterprise, because you want to avoid doing things in silos. And using these large language models with embeddings in vector databases, because you cannot directly feed text data, numerical time series data into these kind of large language models. They have to be converted into numerical form, which is essentially an embedding that you're going to be doing. And then they are stored and analyzed with vector databases. Then on top of that, you do RAG and LLM orchestration pieces, which is retrieval augmented generation and other things. And then comes safety guardrails and other pieces, and the ML ops and LLM ops pieces. Ultimately, you're able to host these models, and all of this kind of helps you build solutions for these customers. Now, what we're calling that is building blocks and not the use cases as much as they're building blocks. Like they could be you're doing data analysis with some of these things, you're doing enterprise search or customer experience, and an enterprise may be doing three or four or two to five of them, depends what they want to choose based on their overall goals. And they may be doing these things in parallel, right? So you may be looking at documents, and that's a critical part in many enterprises. So looking, if you look at financial services, healthcare, there are a lot of documents that have to be analyzed, processed. And today, a lot of that is also manual. And ML and AI is being used today with OCR and also other capabilities to extract intelligence from those documents. So where do kind of GenAI, where can that help? And even content generation is a key area. Marketing has really been transformed through kind of content generation. And similarly with decision making, right? You can automate a lot of the process. So those are things we calling building blocks, and I'll come back to this just in a minute. But primarily, this is our vision of a intelligent enterprise where it's actually using all of these capabilities to create solutions with GenAI. So that's why they're going. Primarily, they want to improve their maturity and be able to kind of create new use cases, but those use cases have to be, providing benefits. And given that this provides the ability for these enterprises to give new customer experiences to the customers and their end customers, right? So you have to kind of build on top of what you already have. And the graphic that you see here is a skeleton reference architecture we have created to enable these pieces. So this kind of helps bring all the data together, so you're discouraging siloed GenAI development. Primarily, that's the power of GenAI, is that you're able to kind of build context across all the data sets that you have. And without using that capability, if you're just doing a science experiment in terms of just a small POC and that doesn't go anywhere, that really doesn't, get the benefit out of GenAI. So ultimately, you're trying to get the highest GenAI performance. So you want to be able to create the infrastructure and invest compute. So the coupled to that is the ability to kind of test new LLMs, because this is a technology that's rapidly evolving. So many large language models being made available, foundation models, and also small language models that are tuned on specific tasks, data sets. So all of those are important. And also now there is agentic AI, which is driving many things. Responsible AI is another component of it. All of these help you in many ways, but ultimately you have to make a right architectural choice. So this has to cover all these components across, all of these, including different tools and frameworks. So you're able to do low-cost training and inference at the end of the day. And as Priya talked about, the tokens are what is going to cost you a lot. So you have to be able to do this at low cost, right? So inference is very critical. You can use GPUs for training a really powerful model or fine tuning it. By the end of the day, you have inference has to be quick and it has to be constrained. So you're able to do that fast. So this architecture that we have, I'll talk about in more detail, but it has both components of data engineering, data science, many other pieces to it. Ultimately, you're interacting with all the LLMs and through hosting and all of that. You may access through an API, or you might download a open source LLM and then kind of fine tune it for yourself, or you might be using it out of the box. So the orchestration is very important. But at the same time, to keep yourself from damaging anything else, you may require a playground. So you may have a sandbox where you're trying your things. And to improve the processing speed, you may use a cache and logging and all of those things. So we'll talk about that in slightly more detail. But that's what I want to kind of show you what our thought process is around. This is our reference architecture for GenAI broadly, and that is expanding on the skeleton architecture I just showed you. There are many kinds of data sources coming in. There is data pipelines, and at the end of the day, you're actually using all of these components to build these applications, and that helps you kind of derive value out of GenAI more than anything else. And to do that, we have capabilities that we are building in terms of all of these. We have partnerships with many providers and technology, hyperscalers as well. So we use APIs from many of these, including OpenAI and Hugging Face, and also others. So there are a lot of things that we do today in these areas. Ultimately, you are kind of using some process like this, and this is a generic reference architecture, but we've also created architecture for think of AWS, or think of Azure, or think of Databricks. We have tuned these reference architectures with components from those, so we can actually go to customers providing specific solutions based on the platforms they may be using. And in this particular case, we are actually also doing things around building solutions for customers with the building blocks I talked about, like document intelligence. We're doing things around content generation. We're doing things around search, and all of those things are something we are touching today, and which is why we have those building blocks, and we're adding more to that as well. Well, I think that's my next slide. But primarily, if you look at things like if you take anything on this prompting is very critical, and thank you, Priya, for going to that in great detail. That's something we really have to get right to kind of keep the cost down. And if you go to the next level of fine tuning, then there are other things we can do. And then again, to kind of enable you to do more things, especially with things like agents, there are things we're doing today to kind of enable us to do this for different organizations, enterprises like banking and financial services sector. Also working in the space of various verticals where this is very important. So now, if you look at the use cases that touch upon these, right? So this is an example of a use case that gives you a glimpse of what we do, and this is something we have delivered to a customer on document intelligence. So the way this works is we have a lot of documents in being used by this particular enterprise. This is in the financial services space. A lot of it is through manual process. So essentially, that's labor intensive. They're actually also using some NLP and ML related work, so extracting information from these documents. Now we can actually combine various things. Could be natural language processing, deep learning, could be OCR, could be large language models, more transformer based techniques that we can extract information specifically required to getting entities, metadata from these kind of documents. The documents themselves may have embedded tables and images in them. So building out a knowledge base of all of those things is very important. So we are doing that today at this enterprise. And ultimately, the goal is to kind of build various question answering components, the knowledge base that you're interacting the knowledge base. They have to do due diligence on many customer requests. So because there's some investigation going on in a customer transaction. So the managers that drive all of those pieces are actually pulling data from multiple sources, doing many things manually today. So now with these capabilities, they can do the interact more closely with the data more effectively, and also chatbots that we're using for internal as well as external facing applications. In fact, later this month, we are moving a couple of those use cases to pre-prod, and then by end of this year, they'll be kind of finalized, rolled out to production as well. So there are things that are in process, and many more 50 plus use cases have been identified in this whole process. Ultimately, this enterprise wants to build a good capability of 360-degree vision of their customers, which is primarily in the financial payment space, of all things like you can think of documents such as checks, invoices, money orders, all of those, right? So, and if you look at checks and invoices, there may be many invoices spanning multiple pages, or there may be one invoice and multiple checks, or multiple invoice and one check. So, and of course, the money orders bringing in transactions. So they need to have complete overview of all of the documents that they have. In addition to this, they also have contracts and other kind of documents. So being able to do this at scale and on thousands and millions of documents is really something really powerful. And if you're able to kind of find information quickly and be able to kind of talk to this data and extract information and process this effectively, you are essentially reducing the turnaround times. You are actually reducing the operational costs, and ultimately the customer is actually able to kind of get what they're looking for faster. So this is where we are actually doing really interesting work, and this is in the one of those building block spaces, but it's not by itself. It's not isolated because it's connected to all of these other pieces where we're pulling data, making it searchable. We're actually doing things with responsibly with guardrails on this because the LLMs have to be constrained and so forth. Another example here is address matching, right? So think of customers who are actually using calling in to kind of get some service. The first thing you're giving is your address, and what the enterprise is doing at their end is matching your address to something they have in their database, and that database could be millions of records long or even more. So the first thing is you have to be able to find, and sometimes they can't locate you. They ask you for a more detailed address and so forth. So how do you kind of improve this process? This is where we are applying GenAI to kind of match the records at scale. But again, that requires data standardization, address standardization, data integration pieces. And then on top of that, we can actually create these vectors from the data by using embeddings. Right. So, and then we can actually use a fine-tuned model. Right. So this is what we're using today to improve. We've tried many other things, and this lightweight model that we can actually quickly use, and at the same time improve the matching through an implementation that we've created, and then couple other pieces to kind of build out the solution through SageMaker endpoint. So ultimately, it is actually doing this very fast, and it helped improve the overall matching accuracy by 18%, went up from about 82% to 99.5%. Significant boost in where they are. At very few cases where need to be improved. Ultimately, it reduced the processing time and also made it more responsive, even more than what they anticipated. And ultimately building out this whole thing for auto scaling. And now we are actually doing one more step ahead in terms of not hitting the vector database all the time, because there are some use case, some addresses which are simple, don't need to hit the database because that's an additional cost. So we are actually hitting the ones that are more complex. So essentially, we're tiering this in terms of, you know, like confidence level of the matches, so that the overall cost of fitting the data, the vector database is lowered. So that helps kind of make it fast at the same time also the lower cost. Now, these are two examples for this customer. And there's also interestingly work that we have done delivered for another customer in customer sentiment analysis, customer feedback analysis to build out to identify sentiments, because this is an airlines customer. People are taking flights. I mean, they may not be happy with the Wi-Fi or the baggage service or many other things. So they were actually using a solution which is based on some older technology, and they actually wanted to move to something new. So we actually delivered to them a solution using GenAI to kind of generate these sentiments. So that is just completed, and in fact, we are actually working with them on many other areas of building a platform out for GenAI as well. So that is something in process. So as you can see, these customers are not using these models as one of experiment. They're actually building this as part of a bigger strategy, and to help kind of build this out with a platform that takes them from ML to AI to Gen AI, and which is why it's all a significant challenge to kind of take this because this technology is evolving rapidly, and you have to take these models to production. And these enterprises have different kind of readiness. So coupled with the fact that they are also constraint for budget and expertise, and which is significant limitation. And on top of that, in certain regulated industries, governance is very, very critical. So because there are risk associated. So this is a multi-dimensional challenge, right? So businesses has to be also plugged in. So why this is, which is why we kind of rolled out a innovation model. And this is the last piece I'm talking about on my deck. Now, primarily, this kind of helps build out these GenAI solutions in through rapid iteration. That's what we're bringing to the table. In fact, it helps kind of build a predictable, demonstrable outcomes within the budgets that these organizations have. And this is a step-by-step process, because we have to show them value to kind of derive a benefit from GenAI. And if they try something that doesn't work, they don't want to be discouraged. Right? So, which is why we have rolled out something called Impetus GenAI Labs, which is part of the Innovation Labs umbrella. So it has three components: a strategy and design and build lab. And this complements our existing data labs as well, which is more focused on data engineering. But the GenAI labs encompasses all of ML, GenAI, and deep learning and everything else. Right. So this is primarily three-part process where we are actually working with customers to do a two-day joint workshop. Could be spread over multiple days or a week, depending on availability of stakeholders. But the goal is to kind of create an architecture or align an architecture which you kind of nail down in the design lab, which is 1 to 3 weeks, and also fast track the overall process and technology selection, and then kind of build out the overall the architecture and the solution within 3 to 5 weeks to less than 6 weeks. So it varies depending on the requirements, and broadly there's some monetary value associated, but for specific qualified organizations, this can be complementary as well. So this is something our teams are working on. So this is a overall architecture framework of the GenAI labs that Impetus is driving. And this is an example of what we do. So on the left-hand side, you have all the constraints and business needs and the data intelligence platform that is being driven. Right. So you can look at intelligence pathways, which is nothing but analytics, data, everything you can do with data, enterprise AI infrastructure, along with the constraints. And then we talked about the building blocks earlier. So out of those building blocks, I'm actually going to be talking about two of them, very at a very high level, because we talked about specific use cases. But the use cases will be on top of these building blocks. You're actually going to be building things, could be building intelligent dashboards, right? So all of this will be through guided curation, which is primarily using the impetus engineering expertise and experience that we bring to the table for rapid development of these models and solutions. And there are things we do with prompt engineering, which we talked about just before this, and then model selection, various other things with LLM ops, RAG, fine tuning, all of those to build these, enterprise business solutions that have superior business outcomes. So with that said, I'll just quickly share my last two slides, which talks about primarily examples of building blocks that we bring to the table. One is document intelligence. We talked about, for example, the customer which was using document analysis and a lot of things. So where we're reconciling documents. So there are many core functions you can apply. It could be document analysis. You may be extracting information, building chatbots, topic modeling, all of these, right? So knowledge-based creation. So ultimately, you're using either basic things at NLP, ML, and deep learning, or more advanced things like the LLMs or other things related to that. So you're building all this full capability across, and we do this for many customers across different verticals. So this is just a reference architecture, and we kind of refine this further for specific things we may have to do for the customer. We delivered this across healthcare, manufacturing, banking, financial services, a lot of customers. As you can see, some cases are maybe text and symbol extraction is relevant to engineering drawings and various other things, and also could be applied to many things as well. And another example of content generation is something related to extracting information from documents. And here, what we're doing is kind of taking all the core functions that we have and extracting information from all the documents to kind of create data that looks like original data. In this kind sense, it may be synthetic data, or it may be specific content like marketing campaigns or other things that we may be generating. And here we may extract schema from the existing data. We may actually do data quality improvement, processing, and ultimately we are actually generating data that looks like something like that. And we have done this for customers in marketing divisions in various organizations, and taking summarization, translation. There's a lot of things in that space as well, in content personalization. So this is actually a whole area of things. And similarly, we've done work in intelligent dashboards, essentially prompt-driven dashboards. So we have a reference architecture for that, where we can actually take static dashboards and add NLP to text. So your way of interacting is now English. It's not any SQL. So essentially, at the backend, the LLM will generate the code to go fetch the data and show you on the dashboard. So that actually makes it more dynamic. So that's something we're doing. Likewise, all of those building blocks we saw on the previous slide, something we are working on. Responsible AI is very interesting because that's something we are actually using to build trustworthy LLMs. And we are actually working with partners also in that space. We have our own guardrails framework for this. We're actually doing that with some of our customers. In addition, we also can work with the partners to kind of build out a capability to, do red teaming on these LLMs, and also be able to kind of figure out where you may generate toxic content, or maybe look for bias and flag all these LLMs and different things, and then be able to kind of tune those according to what is needed. So that's what we can do in that space. So I'll close out with just more details. You can find out more about Impetus and specifically GenAI solutions building at this link here at the top. But primarily, there are a lot of things we do in this space, and you're more than welcome to reach out to me, or also the Impetus. I think there might be a link here. I'm not sure if they put a link here. Sorry, they missed a link, but that was all I had to share. Let me hand it back to Ron. Ron, back to you. I don't know if I exceed my time.